And welcome to this playoff edition of the Bullpen Cart presented by ThunderBlogSports.com. I, of course, am the G-Man, Jordy Cannell. With me, as always, the man who still has a playoff team alive. How you doing, my man?
Jordy, it's a easy day until Thursday, right? That's the Red Sox first game, so
Yeah.
it's always the anticipation days are always the easy ones, right?
Yeah, I think so. And you could get a little bonus, tonight with the American League wild card game. Or I guess we'll go into what you'd like to happen. But as a fan that despises New York, there's a little bit of you kind of hoping tonight, rooting for one side.
It's honestly, if the Astros and the Indians weren't so good, I would be rooting for the Yankees, so the Red Sox would be the team to beat them. However, misery loves company, and I'd much rather have the Yankees lose tonight, lose to the Twins. For those who don't know, we're recording on the Tuesday of the game. But, yeah, I mean, I think at home, I honestly think the Yankees are going to come away with it. I hope I'm wrong, but neither one of those teams is beating the Indians.
Yeah, and we'll get right into it in a second, but just to kind of give everybody an idea, we're going to look at both the wild card games tonight, Tuesday night, when we're recording, as well as the National League game tomorrow night, Wednesday. We're also going to look ahead to the divisional series and preview that. We'll kind of get into, if one team wins versus another, but we'll get to that once we get to the actual divisional series. We kind of jumped right into tonight. It's an interesting game, Yankees and the Twins, which, as you alluded to, being played at Yankee Stadium. And, kind of to jump the gun, I agree with you. I think the Yankees pull away, but let's break down why this seems like such a layup for them.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a layup.
Yeah, that's the wrong word to use, but
I think the big thing here is just the Yankees are that team that at the right time is hot. They obviously, in terms of this matchup, I should say, coming into the game, the Yankees have ended the season very strongly, ended the month of September very strongly. If that's not even the right way of putting it, but and their pitcher tonight, Severino, has been lights out coming down the stretch through September, and Irving Santana has not been bad. On the other hand, for the Twins, but at the same time, I mean, you look at the power numbers for the Yankees, you look at the RBIs, the batting average, everything that they have is just is better. The only thing that the Twins have that the Yankees don't is that playoff, I guess, experience in terms of having veterans in their starting lineup versus rookies in their starting lineup.
Yeah, I guess so. And the Yankees do have an abundance of them. They do have a couple guys that have hung around and were on that World Series team, though. I mean, Brett Gardner's hanging around there. CeCe's there. You won't really see him, but yeah, I mean, and it's an interesting point. I mean, the Yankees on a lot of different, a lot of different points of, matching up the positions have the checkbox on the edge and whatnot. And the thing I think is the most interesting is that the Twins, they started off so hot and they kind of, fell off towards the deadline, and they trade away their closer to Washington. And I think, the Yankees bringing back Chapman this year and kind of adding more to that bullpen, we've seen it in a lot of these wild card games where the bullpen makes a difference. So even if Severino isn't September Severino, or really what he's been for most of 2017, a big sort of moment for me of really doubting this back half of the Yankees rotation when you and I did the preview all the way back in episode 1. He's been great this year, but even if he's the average that we've seen in 2017, that bullpen is so loaded and so rested that I think that helps really carry them. So there's a lot of different, at least defensively, ways that they can navigate this game.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly right, and it's one of those things where they're such a big underdog that they almost steal one from the young Yankees who need to learn a lesson or at least make it close for
To
sure.
learn a lesson.
Yeah, I mean, going in, they showed ESPN would love nothing more than the Yankees to win and Aaron Judge, since ESPN loves to blow Aaron Judge and everything about him. But
It's true.
him and his gap teeth. But no, honestly, it's one of those things where as we talk currently, Jordy, Brian Dozier just smoked a leadoff home run. Let's go. Getting off to a good start.
I did not pick Brian Dozier in a certain daily sports fantasy game, and did pick Luis Severino. So not a good start for me, or the Yankees for that matter. But live updates provided by Greg.
No, so I mean, I'm sure people are going to listen to it after, but the point is that I agree. I think this Twins team certainly is a team, like I said, that has that sort of calmness, I guess is the right word. They're not going to be over gripping the bat, if you will, or sometimes when you tense up, you throw the ball high, and they're going to be sort of calm, level-headed, just because no one really expected them to be this far. No one really expected them to make it, or have such a successful season as they had. So just from that perspective, I think there's a slight advantage to the Twins in terms of nerves and steals and things like that. But in the end, I think the Yankee firepower is too much. And at the end of the day, I think they go to the bull. I mean, I think they go to their pitching early if they need to, and as anyone would in a single game elimination.
Yeah, and that even, assuming they pull ahead and have to pull that type of route, that even almost comes back to their advantage looking forward to a Cleveland series, that you have such massive firepower on the starting end for them and on the back end. That pitching staff's just great. If Severino is average and you have to go to the bullpen early and you get a couple days rest, you wait until Thursday night for them to play. That could be nice for game 3 whenever they decide to pull them back in. But we'll ultimately get to that. I think, though, you're absolutely right. I think this, and if the leadoff home run by Brian Dozier is this could be a slugfest. This could be a great game. And it's exciting. I mean, it could be just a traditional Yankee game takes 4 hours when it should be 2.5, but we'll see. I'm excited for it. And I'm incredibly happy that the baseball playoffs are back.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let's move over to the National League game here tomorrow, Jordy. Diamondbacks versus Rockies. John Gray, Zach Greinke.
Yep.
What are you thinking? Is there any chance that John Gray and the Rockies can go in there and win a game, steal one in Arizona?
So it's funny you ask that. If you had to, let's go back to me incorrectly using the term layup, but if you had to say one game is more of a layup to call than the other, which one would you pick it to be in terms of picking the winner?
Yankees over Twins, personally.
Okay, all right. Then I would have said the opposite. I would have said the Diamondbacks over the Rockies. But you're agreeing with Vegas. The Yankees were a minus 250 favorite on the money line going into tonight, whereas the Diamondbacks are minus 165, meaning you bet $165 to get 100 back. I need to see what the Rockies underdog lines are there. But, I think the Rockies, there is a shot. Now, there's a lot that kind of comes at stake with this one game. I think if you played out a 3-game series and certainly in a 5 or 7, you really see a great postseason series. One game with a guy that looks almost like the Cy Young guy that we saw a couple years ago in Zach Greinke. Not first year with the Diamondbacks, Zach Greinke, but 2 years ago still with the Dodgers. That's tough to see. JD Martinez has been on fire since he came over, and the rest of that lineup is just fantastic as well. And it really kind of the same way as the Yankees. They can, and we talked about this before with them, they can kind of piece their lineup how they want around there. The interesting thing is that with it being a National League game, that when does the bullpen start coming into play? The Rockies certainly added up for their bullpen. So that's something that if the Diamondbacks get it started early, but then kind of, they slow up in those middle innings and certainly late when the bullpen's really coming in. Will that Rockies team come alive late, which they have so many times with all the different bats that they have, and that could make this game a lot closer, a lot more exciting, and great baseball. Obviously, the Rockies don't have the Coors Field advantage, which really the Diamondbacks would also have as well. But it should be a great game.
No, and quickly, Jordy, I mean, what do you think of the Rockies starting John Gray instead of Jermaine Marquez?
I like it. I think John Gray he's proven it for a good amount. It's not necessarily looking to be cocky and thinking that you'd win. You can't really ever think that. And having a guy, like Marquise, who you'd assume would start game one, presuming they get by. Gray, just to run down the stat line quickly, 3.67 ERA, 10-4, 112 strikeouts, a 130 WHIP. I'm trying to see how many innings he pitched this year. That's over 110 innings pitched. So I mean, over a 9 for strikeouts per 9, 10 wins. I mean, basically in 20 games start, it's pretty good. I do like it though. I think that if you get a guy who, he's posting up, probably just if you, as this is the prorated, if you average it out to being a full season, that's basically, it's 15, 16 wins. Still that ERA and the WHIP, it's still pretty nice, but it's close to 170 strikeouts. I mean, that's pretty dominant. And this lineup, if this Arizona team thinks that they can start getting on him quick, you might see a lot of strikeouts.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. Because in my opinion, I think that the Rockies offense is significantly better than the Diamondbacks. And, obviously JD Martinez and Paul Goldschmidt, I mean, outside of those two guys, who really are we looking at for Arizona? But, up and down that lineup for the Rockies, they have guys who have proven they can provide some offense if they need to. I think the biggest reason, honestly, before you answer the question, I think the biggest reason why Arizona has a better record is because their starting rotation depth is just better than the Rockies. And obviously in a one-game series, rotation depth doesn't really mean anything. So
exactly.
In a one-game series, if anything, this favors the Rockies. If this was a 3-game series or 5-game series, you get something different. But this one-game series format scenario, it favors, in my opinion, the Rockies. And I'd be interested to hear what you think of the offenses, both teams' offenses.
So I kind of got into it when I was talking about the Diamondbacks offense. They have pieces that if they get it going, they could be pretty deadly against John Gray. I mean, you have Mark Reynolds, you have a number of different guys. You have Gregor Blanco, who we've seen play well for teams like the Giants when they've made World Series runs. We have Chris Iannetta, the former Rocky, if we're going to go NBC Sports hockey lingo, how they love to point those out in the playoffs. But, he could get it going. JD Martinez, obviously, and Paul Goldschmidt are the two guys that lead the way. But you have so many different pieces that if they rise up to the occasion and match that Rocky offense, or really are able to outperform them for a couple innings past what Greinke can get them, and Greinke goes 7 innings, I mean, it's hard to imagine not a Diamondback win at home. But like we were saying before, if those Rockies get it going, and they certainly can because of how good that lineup is, and I would love nothing further than to see my guy Nolan Arenado get it going and step up on the big stage. I mean, you could easily see a Rocky win here, and kind of I'm now sort of talking myself out of the which one was an easier game to pick, because I just looked at the starting pitching and said, boom, go Greinke.
That's what I'm saying, Jordy. I'm telling you, it's a much harder thing. I mean, yeah, Greinke is unbelievable, and Greinke certainly has, proven himself, and, his playoff numbers, while limited, have been good. But if you look at it top to bottom, I mean, where are they going to get the offense? Unless they win the game, like you said, the National League, he's got a bat. At some point, he's going to come out of the game, and how good is that bullpen, and can they hold off the Rockies forever? I mean, is it a thing where all the Rockies starting pitching, or even all the Rockies pitching, really has to do is just wait until it gets to the Cardinal, or gets to the Diamondback bullpen, and then from there, trust their offense, keep it to a 1-run game until the Diamondback bullpen comes in, and then from there it's Fernando Rodney closing out games for the Diamondbacks. I mean, he was good, 5 years ago? But just a quick update.
Longer than that.
What'd you say?
I said longer than that, but yeah, quick update on the game.
Yankees down 3-0. Another home run by the Twins.
3-zip.
A 2-run home run. So and they got a guy
There's one out.
They got a guy on first right now. So it's
yeah. Oh man.
Severino, as I was talking earlier, I thought he would come in hot and do well coming in, but just goes to show you that the Twins were not, they were not, I guess, scared by the Yankee big lights, at least in the first inning. Anyways, so
that's true. It's only the first inning, so we haven't even seen
official pick. I'm still picking the Yankees, but
I am too.
Even though I'm, if I was smart because the podcast, I'd pick Twins, but picking the Yankees.
Live betting. We could make some money here, but
official pick for the Diamondbacks, Jordy. Diamondback Rockies. What do you got?
I'm gonna still go Diamondbacks. I like Greinke too much here. I think I don't have an over/under on strikeouts, but I would think whatever it is, hammer the over. You'll see a lot. You'll see a lot of big swings. Greinke could probably cause a lot of Rockies to miss. I think he goes 7 innings, and that's enough that they could potentially that they're pulling away enough there, not potentially. But yeah, I'm gonna go the Diamondbacks. Over/unders at 8.5. I'd say 6-3. It's the final score.
6-3, huh?
Yeah.
So,
what about you? What you got? Okay, question.
These two teams are in the same division, correct?
Correct.
What was their record head-to-head this year?
That's a great question that I do not have in front of me. Do you have it?
No, I'm asking you.
All right. Well, I'm going to look it up. We have, and this is great radio here, but
you're Mr. Stat. You're the stat man.
But that being said, let's let's we'll have to.
The point is that between these two teams, they know each other so well. So the Greinke factor may work for a team that he may not see all the time, like when he comes and plays some of the American League teams if they make that far, or even next round. Next round when the Diamondbacks, if they win, head into LA, which I guess he was a Dodger there before, but still they have some new guys and blah blah blah. So the point being that I guess they're the same division too, but the point is that there's familiarity there. So my big thing here is, while I think it's a slam dunk, and I honestly think at the end of the day, Arizona is going to win just because of the Greinke factor, I will not be surprised and would not be surprised if the Rockies end up stealing it.
No, that's a great point. I mean, you could easily say the same thing a couple of years ago with the Cubs and the Pirates when they played in the game. It was in Pittsburgh. Seemed like Pittsburgh had it going, a lot of momentum. The Cubs had a lot of momentum too, don't get me wrong. But that young Cubs team they weren't fazed by a tried and true Pittsburgh team. Great pitching on that squad. But we'll see. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. The divisional factor certainly throws a wrench into it, and sort of all the record books are thrown out the window when these two teams get together. I know that's more of a football term, but these are two teams that we kind of thought going into the season. We've said this a million times, but we're on that same tier, and it's great to see them both step up and kind of realize this potential now. We all thought the Diamondbacks had it last year and didn't. We all knew the Rockies had this potential and are now living up to it. So definitely great for both of them, and it's nice, like I said, to get some West Coast exposure, because a lot of guys on both of those squads have a lot of recognition, or a lot of talent, and need the recognition.
All right, perfect. So we're at the same 8 teams now. You and I have moving on.
Yep.
So let's start with the. You know what? Let's jump right into it. Red Sox and Astros. Houston,
let's do it.
Houston being the number 2 seed hosting the number 3 seed Boston Red Sox. Jordy, I'll let you go first.
All right. So this series, interestingly enough, they've only announced the games 1 and 2 times for both series. The Red Sox and the Astros will play on Thursday and Friday, both day games. They're playing at 4 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday, kicking off officially the postseason, or I guess officially the divisional series since the wild card games count. But really, in most people's mind, the real postseason play. Then 2 o'clock on Friday. Both are interesting to say the least, timing wise. The day baseball during the postseason is always intriguing. Nevertheless, we're getting 2 great pitching matchups. At least in the first game, we got Chris Sale versus Justin Verlander. Friday, we have Drew Pomeranz versus Dallas Keuchel. In terms of what I think is going to happen, it'll be fun to see how that first game goes. Houston is coming in as the slight favorite right now. Over-under set at 7, which, wow, for a playoff baseball game. I do like Sale, though, in that first game. I know that Astros lineup is...
They have them winning by 7 runs?
No. It's the over-under in terms of total runs scored.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. No. That'd be absurd for a baseball game for +7 or -7. But I like Sale in that first game. I know that the Astros lineup is dynamic and can get a lot done. Sale didn't have the best September. So we'll see how he comes out. 2 former AL Central rivals coming at one another. But I kind of like the Red Sox in that first game. Second game, Pomeranz versus Keuchel. Pomeranz has had a great year. Kind of pat myself on the back for having him on my fantasy team. But I like Keuchel there. I think they split it in Houston. Coming back to Boston, it's hard to that the Red Sox have the clear home field advantage at Fenway. I think this goes the full 5, and sorry to tell you, Greg, I think the Astros take it in 5 games back in Houston.
I hear you.
Yeah.
So my big thing here is plain and simple, okay? My biggest gripe, the Red Sox, their manager here, Chris Sale, obvious number 1, okay?
Yep.
Drew Pomeranz's numbers at home versus on the road, he's been good on the road, but he made this John Farrell, the manager of the Red Sox, made the mistake last year. He said, I'm not going to start Porcello at home because he's much better on the road. He starts Porcello on the road, gets smoked in game 1, and the rest of the series was shot. So it's like, whatever. The point is that that was obviously a different Cleveland Indians team that went down all the way to the World Series. But the point being that, he made the same mistake last year. You stick with the guns that got you there. Yeah, he's your second best pitcher of the year. But in terms of, who you give him the ball to in a game 2 situation on the road, I guess I can't complain too much because Pomeranz was going to have to start at some point. But
yeah.
I personally, this is a much personal level, which never would have happened, and I feel like I'm one of the only people in Boston who thinks this way, but I would like to see David Price start a game at some point. A lot of people are saying that they might do the Cy Young approach in terms of pitching Price and Porcello in the same game. So have Porcello go about 4 innings and then Price.
And bring in Price. Kind of like the Cubs tried to do last year.
Yeah, exactly.
In game 7. Yeah.
But, it remains to be seen, and I personally am a fan of Price and blah, blah, blah. But honestly, I don't know. Chris Sale is a huge question mark to me. Honestly, that's my biggest concern, or the biggest question mark. If Chris Sale, the Red Sox go as he goes in terms of if they can win game 1, I will be confident in their team and the series. If they lose game 1, there's no chance in my opinion, because Pomeranz may steal 1 in game 2, but that Astros offense, like you said, Jordy, top to bottom, there's no easy out, and their depth. The Red Sox have some guys who. This is such a weird team, and I'm rambling and ranting here, but this has been such a weird team and weird season this year because the Red Sox are a team that you go around and they had guys like Eduardo Nunez and Rajai Davis come in at the break, and they really carried the team for a while, And now Nunez is coming off an injury, and Pedroia is coming off an injury, and Mookie Betts, who was their best player last year, inconsistent all year. Andrew Benintendi, the rookie stud, had inconsistent all year. Xander Bogaerts, up and down all year. Jackie Bradley, his whole career has been up and down. And then, you go to the rookie at third base, Devers, who crushed the ball in August to cool off a little bit in September. But, you got a rookie at third base. You got a rookie in left field. You got the young center field. But quite frankly, I mean, the Red Sox team, they have – all right, I just talked myself out of it, but I stopped myself from saying it. Because there is talent on this team, but at the end of the day, like I said, I've said many times in this podcast, I think they were still a year away beforehand. I mean, this team, especially this year in the Major League, in the MLB, you need home runs to win, and a team that hasn't hit a grand slam all year is not going to win playoff series. I just don't want them to be embarrassed and swept like they were last year. I think anything more than the 3-game sweep is a win for the Red Sox, but I definitely think Houston's going to take it. Sorry for the long-winded answer. Let's move on quick and get through the next ones.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, just a quick bookend to it. I think if Sale does go down, it's hard for them to think that it's coming back to Houston. I would take Houston in 4 in that case. But yeah, let's move on to the other series. For both of us, it would be the Yankees and the Indians. Let's look at it if it's both, considering the current score of the game. But, I mean, I think either way, it's really going to take a lot for whoever the wild card winner is to come back home in Game 3, not down 2-0. Times for the games, 7:30 on 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. We got for Game 1, at least for actually they haven't even announced it yet on the ESPN. But
no,
I think it's going to be it's no question of who it is unofficially, but it's hard not to think that the Indians aren't coming out of that first 2 games up 2-0.
No question. Absolutely none in my mind. I don't know about you, but absolutely none. Sorry, absolutely none in my mind. The Twins, top to bottom. I mean, their lineup is more jam-packed than the Astros, and their starting pitching is unbelievable. Their bullpen's unbelievable. I mean, the Indians. And watching. I mean, you may not. You obviously know because you're a baseball guy, but some of the people listening, you never know. That stadium, Cleveland last year, was just unbelievable atmosphere in the playoffs, and quite frankly, between that home field advantage that they have now throughout the American League, without jumping ahead, staying on the series, both the Yankees and Twins, neither one of them stand a chance, at least in Cleveland. Remains to be seen at home, but because I'm sure Minnesota or New York will be bumping, but I think Cleveland takes care of that one. I'm hesitant to ever call a sweep, but because no analyst ever does. But I'm going to go ahead and be that guy who sticks his neck out on the line. I think it's a 3-0 sweep for the Indians, no matter who they play.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there. I think, and we kind of talked about this a little bit and Severino's been pulled. So if the Yankees do in fact pull this out, you can see Severino really come back, Game 3 for this series. And
I mean, he didn't make it out of the first inning. He could pitch.
He didn't make it out of the first inning against the Twins. So
you could make Game 1 if you really wanted. Yeah. Yeah,
you could easily. I don't have the number of pitches he threw, but you're absolutely right. You could throw him Game 2, Game 1, assuming you win. That is. But yeah, I mean, I just. It is hard to pick the sweep. You want to think they get one at home, but it's hard with this Indians team to not think that they're going to pull it out and just really take it to them. I mean, if they took it to a good Red Sox team last year that really it kind of sucked that the sweep was what the result was. And you and I kind of talked a year ago and thinking like, oh, it sinks, so this isn't going to be the ALCS. This could be a classic, yada, yada, yada. Obviously, the result didn't reflect that way, but my point being is that Red Sox team, in my mind, is clearly still better than either of the two teams that would be facing this Indians team. So if they got swept, transitive property says wild card winner is going to get swept. So I'm going to take it with you. Indians clear favorite right into the ALCS, and that would give us the Astros and the Indians, kind of everybody's big pick and sort of the chalk pick. But it's hard not to think that that's what it's going to be without any sort of serious drama that we've seen before in October. It is October's magical matchups after all.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I mean, baseball more than any other sport. I mean, maybe probably football too, but you really want to see the two best teams face off. Division winners mean so much, sure,
Yeah.
but like you get teams in there who don't necessarily have the best record or the top of the AL record or the top of the NL record. You know what I mean? Like two, like I'm pretty sure the wild card teams in the National League have better records than the Cubs, but
they do.
The Cubs won their division they're in. So it's like for anything, you're almost rooting for the two best teams from start to finish to be there because you're awarding the best team of that year. But the scary thing is, at least in the American League, that Houston and Cleveland from start to finish were the top teams. And the Indians only got better from last year, which is very scary.
Yeah.
And obviously Andrew Miller, what he is or what he has left or where he is in his rehab or whatever, that's going to be a big storyline just based on the way he was used last year. I don't think Francona uses him the way he did last year, but I still think he will have some meaningful innings. So moving on before we do the championships, Jordy, heading over. Let's go 2-3 seed. The Washington Nationals host the Chicago Cubs. Just so you don't have to say it, and you can have some time. The first game is October 6th, which is a Friday. Cubs at Nationals, 7:30 p.m. in our nation's capital. Who do you have in this series? And do you think Bryce Harper can do anything in the playoffs?
So, very loaded question because there's a lot of different ways to look at the Nationals. And kind of to answer your Bryce Harper question without actually answering it, to go into my series pick, we saw Max Scherzer leave his last start with what appeared to be a hamstring injury. Bryce Harper's been battling injury all year. A lot of the other guys in their lineup have been battling injury all year. That being said, the Nationals do have a really, really good starting rotation. The Cubs starting rotation got better as the year went on, not nearly as good as it was last year. Kind of played into the age factor this year more so than last year. That being said, their offense is still pretty great. The Nationals offense has had some injuries. I think just like with the Red Sox and the Astros, I think this one goes the distance. But it depends on what you get with the Nationals. If Max Scherzer isn't fully there and he's trying to push on it, you could see it be Cubs in 4. I like Cubs in 5, though. I think you probably see him split in both the first 2 in Washington, 2 in Chicago. But we've seen that Cubs team in those one game, winner take all, winner go home, really rally, come together as a team. You can say what you will about Joe Madden and some of his decisions, not as prevalent as last year. Then again, the postseason is just beginning. But it's hard to think, because the big thing about the Cubs last year and the reason why they went down 3-1 to Cleveland in the World Series was that the bats weren't getting it going until really those last 3 games of the World Series. They got by because they're played so well in the NLDS, the NLCS. They had a lot of great hitting moments. Of course, that grand slam in Game 1 of the NLCS being one of the main talking points of that in there. But I think the Cubs, their lineup really had that slow start and have not to the degree of what the Diamondbacks were able to do, or even to a degree of what the Indians did, because they didn't have the best start. But I just think the Cubs got this. They'll win. I'm going to say in 5 officially. If Scherzer's not healthy or isn't fully 100%, it could be 4.
So, it's funny you say that about the Nationals and which team are we going to get and this and that. I mean, I would almost say the exact same thing about the Cubs because
you easily could. You easily could.
Like you said, I mean, the Cubs didn't have a great playoff last year. And one of those things where going into the playoffs, the Cubs were the team to beat. You know what I mean? Like they were the team last year. And, it was almost like, oh, Red Sox or Cubs, who's going to win? And when the Indians swept the Red Sox, it was like, okay, what's going on? But the Cubs really were the team to win. And that's the difference this year is that they very quietly have snuck into the playoffs. They're one of those, they won the division, but they're one of those teams where, people are talking about their playoff experience. They're talking about the Cubs repeating 100 years, blah, blah, blah. But for me, it's a matter of, starting pitching versus offense. The Cubs are going to try and grind out some runs, but if the Nationals lineup can do what they have proven they can do throughout the year with or without Bryce Harper hitting well, because remember, they still have Murph, and Daniel Murphy had the unbelievable when the Mets went far. He was the reason why.
That's true. It's very true.
And
Worth has had a quietly good season as well. As much as I hate to see him do well with another team, but Jason Worth has done very well.
Even when the Phillies won the World Series, he was a big part of that. So
he was. That's what got him his starting job. He was platooning up until really that postseason.
Right. So those, there are guys in that lineup who can produce with or without Bryce Harper. So the point being that, I think the Nationals, the question isn't which Cubs team show up. I really think it's what Nationals team shows up. Because like you said, Scherzer, he with his different color eyes, who knows what he's doing, which way he's looking, and blah blah blah. And Bryce Harper and who's their stud pitcher who gets hurt every year? Who's
Strasburg.
Yeah, I mean the two of them, that's the big storyline. They're supposed to be the young talent faces of baseball, and they haven't really.
Bryce Harper believes in the multi-face God. We can't forget that.
They haven't proven anything. So and Dusty Baker is while he's a good manager, he hasn't done anything in the playoffs in terms of winning a World Series and much. So I personally think
got close.
Yeah, I mean I think it comes down to which Nationals team shows up. As opposed to your point of which Cubs team shows up.
I was agreeing with you. Which Nationals team shows up? The Cubs, I think, that pitching's been consistent. That lineup, I think, is on the up, in my opinion.
What I meant to say was, I flipped that in my head. What I meant to say was the Nationals, I think, are going. I think, despite Bryce Harper and Strasburg, I think Scherzer and the rest of the team, Murphy and Worth and guys like that, they carry the Nationals over the Cubs in terms of, I think they're going to be good. I think the Nationals are going to be good, point 1. Point 2, like I was trying to make before, the Cubs team is really the question mark. The Cubs team, grinding out runs. Can they grind out offensive runs? Can they give enough support to guys like Arrieta, Lester, who've proven they can pitch in the playoffs? Can that offense support? It's easy to pitch with a lead. So can their offense get out early? And that's what I think it comes down to is which Cubs team. Personally, that's what I think it comes down to, which Cubs team shows up. I ultimately think the Nationals are going to win, so I think we disagree there.
All right, first disagreements. That was bound to happen. I mean, I could easily see the Nationals winning too. It's cliche to say that this is the Nationals. The Nationals' faux pas is when they get into the playoffs. But we'll see what happens, how they proceed. We saw the Dodgers finally get over the hump last year and get into the NLCS, but I mean it'll be interesting to see. You could easily see go up early. You could see it go 2-0 Washington, then tied 2-2 in Chicago. I think that Wrigley Field atmosphere, the first games after a World Series win, I think that's going to be a zoo of an environment out there. But let's move on. Final divisional series, and then we'll do our quick picks for the rest of the postseason. But the Dodgers versus the wild card winner. This, I think, we talked about, we alluded to it. It's kind of like last year when you and I talked about the Indians and the Red Sox being the unfortunate, NL or ALDS series. It's unfortunate that this might not be the NLCS, because this could be, a series, a series to go down in the history books. I think it could be a lot of fun to watch. No matter which team wins the wild card tomorrow night, I think both of them match up against the Dodgers really well. But that Dodgers team is hot coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I slightly disagree. I mean, I personally think that, and I've been saying this since before, I think the Diamondbacks, yeah, their starting pitching is really good, but I don't think that their offense is good enough to win a World Series.
No.
And with that said, I think. Sorry. With that said, I think if anything, you're right. I think the Rockies do match up well against the Dodgers, just because they have that offense. But again, then there on the other side, their pitching is not nearly where it should be in terms of to stop that Dodger lineup. So if you combine the Rockies offense and the Diamondbacks pitching, maybe you can get a good matchup. But I think this has the makings of a sweep as well.
Okay. Yeah, I could see a sweep. I think, though, especially, I think comparatively to the Yankees or the Twins, these two teams, say they are down 2-0, go to Dodger Stadium, get blown out. I think they rebound well at home. They both have unique home fields in terms of the advantages that they give them. Coors Field has been talked about to death in terms of that. The way that their pitching's been able to navigate that this year, which is always the big red flag for them going into every season. But Chase Field, you can't really discount that either. Those Diamondback fans, those retirees who love baseball, they show up, and it's an interesting dome field, big pitcher's park. But I think that they're more likely to get a game out of there, if not two. I mean, I really think, it depends on which, if Clayton Kershaw is here to stay, the Clayton Kershaw we saw last year, it could be an easy sweep. But as much as I love the guy, he's one of my favorite baseball players. It's still something that you got to keep in the back of your mind about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a fan of this whole rhetoric about Kershaw and the postseason. Obviously, the numbers are what they are, but
yeah, it's a shitty rhetoric to be like, oh, he sucks in the postseason, because he's done well, he's done decent before, but
you can't deny it. So I agree, but the point is that quite frankly, this Dodgers team, they have so much depth. You know what I mean? That's something that at the end of the day is crazy. You know what I mean? Like they top to bottom, they have guys that even on their bench coming in. I mean, Gonzalez probably won't even start for them, right?
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about Adrian Gonzalez, who won an MVP or was in the discussion for how many years in a row? I mean, for how many All-Star games he's been in? I mean, they got guys on their bench who would be starting. I mean, Curtis Granderson, obviously there's a whole bunch more. I mean, I think Chase Utley doesn't tear anybody's ACL this year. That's my big prediction for the playoffs.
It's a hot take. I'll tell you that.
But I quite frankly, I really honestly do, Jordy, believe that this Dodgers team. I don't want to call two sweeps in the division or the division series, but I'm going Dodgers sweep. So we got. Thank you. So we got. I have Dodgers Nationals, you have Dodgers Cubs, and then we both have Cleveland and Houston. So let's start with Cleveland and Houston.
Well, quickly, you didn't let me pick how many games it was going to be.
Well, sorry.
I say it's going to be a great series. But then again, it's the Dodgers. I wanted to give some drama. It's going to be Dodgers in 4. That said, quick picks for the final for the championship series, World Series. We're obviously going to be covering this, as the rounds go on. But as you said, Houston Astros, Cleveland Indians. Let me ask you, is this like the Western Conference Finals in the NHL a couple years ago, where the winner of this series wins the World Series, or is it just, feed them to the probably consensus NL pick for it and look at a World Series for the ages?
No, I really think that the American League is going to have the World Series champion. I think you're right on that one.
Yeah.
I'm going
Stanley Cup Western Conference Finals in 2014 or something. For those that want to be correct, finish your point. I'm sorry.
I love it. You're always correct in stats, even on yourself. You're a class act. You got a voice for this. You're got a mind for this. Those who don't subscribe or those who don't follow the blog or listen to any of other Jordy's podcasts, I really think you should do so. Thunderblogsports.com, ThunderBLG on Twitter or Instagram or one of the two.
Oh, somebody's been listening to the intros.
I have been, big fan of what you do, and I'm honored that you have me on every time. But for the baseball, so honestly, Jordy, I'm going Indians. I don't even think it's close. Another hot take.
Yeah, I agree with you too.
I think the Indians in 5. This Indians team has the
5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This Indians team has the makings of a of the Royals of when they lost and came back and won. Quite frankly, because of all the drama that we had last year, I don't think the MLB is going to be that lucky 2 years in a row. I think it's going to be a five game. I think Houston gets one in Houston for their fans, for everything that's going on, the devastation, things like that. But I honestly think that Cleveland in 5, and that steamroll, that ship, the train has started to roll, and I think Anyways, we'll save my World Series prediction for after that. But what do you got?
Yeah, so I was going to be a little more conservative on my pick than you. I do have the Indians. I have them in 6. I was going to take the Hurricane Harvey emotional win, but I was going to double it. I think you come into Houston down 2-0, win game 3, lose game 4, win game 5, your final home game. You come back to Cleveland and the steamroll fully powered up and just completely flattens them to knock them out. Then again, you could see this being very similar to the 2015 NLCS, a great pitching team versus a dynamic offense that is, granted, it's not as young as that Cubs team was. You could see this being your 5, or, neither of us is calling a sweep, but, neither were really anybody going into that series. But yeah, I think it's easy pick for the Indians, and we're not going to jump ahead of ourselves, but I think you could see it be a pretty easy run in the next round, but we'll get there.
Jordy, quickly, didn't mean to cut you off, but the Yankees have responded with 3 runs of their own in the bottom of the 1st. They're still at bat with a guy on.
It's never over.
But it holds true. Our prediction of the Yankees is still looking good, so we could be safe in there. So anyways, keep going here. So you think the Indians, and you said 6?
6.
So they win the decisive game on the road.
No, the baseball is different than any other sport. It's 2-3-2.
Even I thought that was only the World Series. That's the same for the CS too.
I was trying to look it up while you were doing your
all right, I'll do a quick recap. I'll do a quick recap of how the Yankees scored, even though people, when they watch this, are gonna probably know. But Gardner doubled. Judge knocked him in with a single. Sanchez stinks, so he flied out to center. And then Didi Gregorius, the Yankees shortstop who replaced Derek Jeter, hit a homer that brought in Judge to make it 3-3. And now they're out of the inning, and we're into the second.
We're into the second. It is 2-3-2 in the CS's championship series for the long hand. So yeah, the Indians win it in Cleveland. And I think, as much as people love to talk about Cleveland as a football town, a basketball town with LeBron and bringing together the Banana Boat crew. They love baseball. They love their Indians. Even rewind a couple years when the Indians were not so good. Before they became the Windians again, they've loved them through and through. Cleveland loves their sports, and I think they get a big win there. And we'll see how it goes in the World Series, but we'll get there. Let's jump over to the National League. I think no matter who wins the divisional series, I think very similar to this. It's an easy pick of the Dodgers here.
I disagree. I mean, you can give your reasons afterwards, but I think if the Nationals beat the Cubs, which is what I'm predicting, I think that the Nationals, quite frankly, I think the Nationals have that confidence and will roll. I mean, I think that they'll get that confidence and that excitement that comes with playoff baseball. I mean, that's a long way to go from east to west, back and forth, and two coasts, if you will. But the Dodgers, while good and certainly have the depth, quite frankly, I think the Nationals just match up better versus the Dodgers. I really do. I think the Nationals can beat the Dodgers. I think it'll be a close one. I think it'll be the 2-3-2 really changes it for me, because I was going to say 6 because the Nationals win at home. But, I think this is tough. I'm going to go with 5. So the Nationals still win at home. They win.
Wow.
They still won.
Wow.
Steal one in LA against Kershaw, and then win 3 at home. Even though there's no home field advantage, because everyone knows Nationals don't have real fans in DC. But that was a straight shot at anyone. Anyways, I think the Nationals.
No, it's true though. I think people in DC would agree with you. No, that's wow. Oh, Greg, I love the hot takes. I'm gonna go Dodgers in 6. They win it back at Dodger Stadium. I do think. No matter who it is, whether it's the Nationals or the Cubs, I think both put up a good fight against this Dodger team. We saw them starting to run out a bit of steam in September, and they kind of regained it going in, which is why I've been, hesitant on giving them the sweep, giving them in 5, giving them really, any dominant wins. But I still think they're a great baseball team. They put it together, win the National League, and go to the World Series for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, it's hard to pick against a team that won 104 games, and the Dodgers, the way they did it.
It's chalk, though, on my end at least. I put both 100 winners, 100 game winners in the World Series.
You're right, you did, and quite frankly, I mean, the Dodgers team has been coasting for all intents and purposes since, I guess, the middle of August, if you will, because they could, and I think Dave Roberts done a great job managing them, but. To the point where they're healthy, they're ready to go, and they've been, like I said, coasting for the last month and a half. But I just think the matchups favor Washington, and I think if they have that confidence of actually winning a series for the first time in recent history for them, then I think they have that confidence and are able to move forward with it and beat the Dodgers. But anyways, Indians and Dodgers for you. I'll let you go second since you're the expert. Indians and Nationals for me, Jordy, in the World Series, since I have to pick a team. I'm definitely going Indians. I'm definitely going Francona. Trust the guy who's been there before. Trust the guy who knows what he's doing at the end of the day, because when it gets to the World Series, it really comes down to manager out manager, and that's why you got the Cubs and Indians going 7 last year, because you had 2 great managers. But I think at the end of the day, top to bottom, the Indians are that much better. The only thing that I think would hinder the Indians, Napoli played a huge rallying role for them last year, and Encarnacion hasn't necessarily done the same thing, but they've had to rely on some other guys to be their rallying cry. And outside of Kluber, Jordy, do you think that the Indians have enough pitching depth to beat a team like your Dodgers?
So it's an interesting question. They have, they have good bullpen depth to match up with that lineup. Pitching depth on the front end has been, I don't want to say shaky because the season Corey Kluber's put together, but you've seen a lot of different movement from a lot of the guys that were great last year. Guys moving around from either the bullpen to the back to the starting lineup, or starting rotation, I should say. I think they can match them. I think they do match them, even if it's Washington, if it's LA. I think if they step it up and get it going. Now, the one thing that does fall into, at least for me, picking the Dodgers is that Dodgers would get home field here. They would get games 6 and 7 for you. The Indians get it because they have a better record than the Nationals. First time in a long time we've had something like this. So that's something to keep an eye out for. I just think, though, that Indians team, just like the Dodgers that we're talking about, I think they have a lot of depth. You can kind of build a lineup here and there and move players kind of to fit. And I think that's why it's such an intriguing World Series matchup. I think, though, that Indians bullpen really, really is what kind of pushes them over the edge. I would say Indians in 6, to be honest. I think they sweep in Cleveland. And if they lose 2 in LA, they come back sweeping Cleveland, win game 6. That, or they split it out in LA and maybe even win it at home, like one Philadelphia Phillies once did. But we're not going to talk about that.
It's a good point. It's a valid argument, and the biggest reason why I asked you that bulk or the starting rotation question is really, Jordy, because at the end of the day, is Bauer going to slice himself again on a drone? At the end of the day, I don't think they can rely on Miller as much as they did last year, and their bullpen as much as they did last year. I mean, you brought Miller in the 3rd and 4th inning in some games. I just don't know if you can do that back-to-back years, and that's a big question mark to me. And if anything, that's the only thing that's going to hinder the Indians from doing what the Royals did, and I guess that's really their Achilles heel if I were to pick one for this year.
See, I think of it less like the Royals of 2015 and more like the San Antonio Spurs of 2014. I mean, the Indians basically had this wrapped up in their favor.
You have to draw that comparison for me because
that's a very good point. The San Antonio Spurs in 2013 basically had the NBA Finals wrapped up to LeBron James and the Miami Heat. I believe it's Tony Parker is on the free throw line. You're going to have to correct me. We'll have to look it up. But misses a free throw. The Heat the Heat come down, kick it out to A1. Ray Allen nails one of the most clutch corner threes in game 6 to send it to game 7. The Heat come and steamroll the Spurs right out of it, I believe. I need to double check that box score. But the next year, the San Antonio Spurs, the 2014 Spurs team, steamroll through the NBA. They come back into the finals against the Heat and thwomp them. This, of course, is what many believe to be the reason why LeBron went back to Cleveland, left Pat Riley hanging in the cold. I think this Cleveland Indians team is just like that. They basically had this series last year, signed, sealed, delivered to them. Arguably, if not for a rain delay, they carry that momentum into the 10th inning and end up getting Cleveland their 2nd title in the same year, which about 18 months ago would have sounded absurd. I think they're a team, carries a lot with them. World Series 2017.
Great. Listen, that was a great job recapping it. Great comparison. I like it. I'm on board with it. And obviously, since I'm picking the Indians over the Nationals and you're picking the Indians over the Dodgers, it works for both of us. So anyways, what do you think would be the Indians' biggest last point here before we end it? What do you think is the Indians, since we've been favoring both the Indians and I guess Dodgers the whole time. What do you think the Indians' biggest Achilles heel is, and same with the Dodgers?
So I think the Indians' biggest Achilles heel come in a couple different ways. The biggest one, I think, honestly, and this is going to sound a little crazy, can be that lineup. I think, especially, against good pitching, which both of our National League picks have. If they're not fully getting it going, we talked about leading into the Indian streak about how Lindor wasn't really the one that was leading the way, and obviously did so great during that streak and has really come back into prominence. Jose Ramirez is another who's had a great year, and had a good stat line on the streak. But Jay Bruce has done decently well. You mentioned Edwin and how he's been up and down for them throughout this season. But really, I think if that lineup, kind of like the Cubs last year, if they all collectively get cold at the wrong time, it could spell disaster for them. It's tough to say because of how complete I think that lineup is, and however many ways that you can put them and put the pieces together. But that's something that I would say to really watch out for. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it before. It's their starting pitching.
Yep.
They have Kluber and Bauer, but quite frankly, outside of Kluber, I don't know if I trust them to go deep enough into games past Miller. I mean, well, I say that. I mean, a lot of their starting pitchers last year were hurt heading into the playoffs, if my memory serves correct, which tonight has proven some different different outcomes. But honestly, I think that they're starting pitching from Carrasco to Bauer to Kluber. I mean, even Tomlin, depending upon who gets the fourth game there. I think that's really the biggest. What can Carrasco, Kluber, and Bauer do in a 7-game series if they ever need to go that far?
Yep. No, it's all great points, and especially in the World Series. I mean, depending on how we see them come out, do we see like a 2014 Giants type scenario? Now, I'm not suggesting Kluber becomes the next Madison Bumgarner, but how do they necessarily build their lineup around that? And you can say the same thing with the Dodgers. You could say the same thing with the Nationals, the Cubs. I should say. Let's not jump too far ahead of ourselves here, but I mean, really managing the rotation and managing the bullpen, I think, has become the way to win the World Series. I think that the Indians have a guy that can certainly do that in Tito, and I think they have a lineup that enables them to really be able to get creative and interesting with it, both on the pitching staff as well as in the batting lineup as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I have the same exact issue with the Dodgers, which is why I think the Dodgers are going to lose earlier than you do, just because they're starting pitching. Kershaw has been, as historically as we previously stated, questionable at best in the postseason. Kluberson is an unknown. Wood, I mean, Rich Hill and Maheda. I mean, who knows what they're going to do now towards as they get up there. But the point is that both these teams have that sort of starting rotation depth, so there is that chance that neither one of them makes it this far for that reason.
No, I totally agree with you. And like we said before, that's sort of the beauty of October and October baseball. October's magical matchups is something that I think Fox used to call the postseason along with NFL coverage, but something that I always love to think of baseball in that way. And I think this will be a lot of fun. It'll be fun to see how everything develops out. We're going to be covering it all right here at the Thunderblog, thunderblogsports.com. If you haven't picked up on it by now, ThunderBLG is our Twitter account, Thunderblog Sports, Instagram, and Facebook. But Greg and I will be back at some point next week. Depends on when everything kind of wraps up on both the American and National League Division Series. But Greg, any last thoughts before we head out and go watch the rest of this game?
Oh, yeah. I have two quick last thoughts. One, congratulations to your Philadelphia Phillies for ending in third to last.
Woo!
Almost caught the White Sox to be fourth and last, but it happens. And then, I mean, mainly because you're nobody's boy, Pablo Sandoval smoked a game-winning walk-off home run to win.
The one time he does something right
on the last day, but the Tigers and them both those teams ended below the Phillies. So nice job to the Phillies, and congrats, Jordy. Nice job. Race for last place. You guys did not do that, so trust the process. You're already doing better.
Trust the prospects is the Phillies. Trust the process is the Sixers.
Okay, my mistake. And then the last one is I was thoroughly, I don't want to say disappointed because I think John Carlos Stanton had an unbelievable year, but I was upset that he was unable to get that magic number of 60. But that is for the MLB season, for me, that would be my biggest disappointment. Not disappointment, but I was pulling for him. I was rooting for him, especially after everything that him and his team went through last year, and the possibility of him being a free agent and who knows where he'll be next year, but or being traded or what have you. I was really rooting for him to do it.
Yeah, and we'll at some point we'll do an off-season podcast and kind of covering of where does X team go here. The Marlins is certainly an intriguing story with everything that's happened with them this year. Both on the field and off the field, of course, with a new owner. But we'll cover that once the postseason ends. Like I said, stick right here at the Thunder blog for all of your needs. But I think that's going to do it for us, Greg. Thank you as always,
Jordy,
my friend.
Jordy, no final thoughts for you?
Final thoughts for me. Happy to see the Phillies, where they finished. As much as you want to say it'd be nice for them to get the first overall pick. Number 3 ain't bad. But I think even more so kind of on a moral sense of that you only finished, I think it ended up being 3 games behind the Mets, which, who would have thought that at the beginning of the season, really?
Hey-o.
Yeah, it's also kind of unfortunate for the Mets. You don't really want to see that the way that it happened with them with all the injuries, but nonetheless, it's just exciting to see a young team do so well and a real glimpse into the future. It'll be intriguing to see. All of us here in Philadelphia are going to be watching out for who they hire as their next manager, with Pete Mackanin taking a different role with the organization. He is becoming basically the Phillies' Dwight Schrute, Greg. Special assistant to the general manager.
Nice.
Yeah, he's even got the glasses. Who knows if he has a beet farm, but maybe they'll build him one.
Good for you.
Yeah, I think that might be our first Office reference on the podcast, which I don't know how many episodes in we're in, but
impressive.
Who on us that it took us this long. But I think that'll do it, Greg. Thank you as always. Always a pleasure having you on.
Jordy, you're great. The podcast is great. The blog is great. I'm loving what you guys are doing with the football. It's a lot to jam in both college and NFL into one pod, but somehow you and Matty D do it.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, it's been a ton of fun this year, and I'm excited to see what we can do in the playoffs, and go Sox.
All right. Well, for my man, Greg Piatelli, I am the G-Man, Jordy Kinnell. Have a good night, everybody. Enjoy the playoffs, and we'll talk to you next week.